Hello, what a surprise seeing you here in the National Mall.
Yes, I have not seen you since our hookup in Deer Valley at the Stein Erikson Lodge. That was a very funky time.
I am glad you enjoyed it. I always enjoy snuggling with you. But what are you doing here in DC?
I am in DC because I am a visiting economics professor at Georgetown now. I am in the mall because I love the trees at this time of year and do not have to lecture until this afternoon.
Fabulous. Do you have an apartment here?
No, I have a suite. I rented one at the Willard Hotel for a few months while I am teaching.
Great. Maybe we can go there for a cocktail and a snuggle later.
That sounds good. They have a lovely bar and I have a nice suite. But why are you here?
I am headed to the Smithsonian to do some research at the Science Center.
Oh wow, I thought you researched economics. Why turn to science now?
Well, I usually research economics and I was listening to President Obama's speech about economics the other day.
So?
Well, then he made me start thinking of science as he talked of his newly found superpowers.
Superpowers? Like a cartoon?
I guess, kind of like Spider-Man, Batman, the Iron Man, whatever. It was very powerful and uplifting. Did you watch the speech?
I started watching it, but I fell asleep about the same time as the vice president.
Well, you missed the best parts of the speech regarding his superpowers. And since he did not have the superpowers as a senator or in his first 2 1/4 years as president, I figured they must be new powers, so I am going to the Science Museum to try to understand how I may gain them myself.
This is very interesting. So he just came out and said he had superpowers.
Oh no. As you know, President Obama is a great orator. So he told a compelling story to let us know of his new superpowers.
My mother must be a great orator too, because when I was young her stories would make me go to sleep as well. But go on.
Well, President Obama described the world in a very dramatic way. With villains, heroes and other interesting characters.
Kind of like a science fiction movie.
Sort of. But this was compelling.
So who is the villain?
The villain is everyone who has come before the President Obama.
What?
Well, the president says that everyone who has come before him has caused these problems and only a hero like him can save the United States. He feels very strongly about his optimism.
Well, everyone who came before President Obama is kind of a long name for a villain.
You are right. We will shorten the monster's name and call the villain Prio.
But hasn't President Obama been president for 2 1/4 years, and I believe he was a senator before that?
Yes.
And hasn't the deficit grown at the fastest rate in history under his presidency?
Yes, you are right. We will call the villain Pre-Supero instead of the Prio, which will account for his recent addition of superpowers.
That makes sense. So the villain is Pre-Supero. Who is the hero?
Of course the hero is President Obama, or you can call him Supero if you wish.
And the other characters, who are they?
They are the extreme right-wing vigilantes, and an evil cult called the Rich.
Okay, so the speech was about the villain Pre-Supero, the hero President Obama, the vigilantes, and this cult called the Rich. That is interesting. Too bad I fell asleep.
Well, I will bring you up to speed. So the monster called Pre-Supero is threatening the United States economy with a massive deficit that will bankrupt our children and grandchildren and will force us into the hands of the Chinese, who will own all of our treasury bonds.
That sounds very scary.
But President Obama has a great plan to prevent that.
Is he the only one who can save us? Surely someone else in the United States can help.
See, that is where it gets interesting. The vigilantes think they too can stop the Pre-Supero monster.
So do they have superpowers?
No. They only have an articulate plan.
I see. Is their plan any good?
Well, it may not be perfect, but it seems like a logical start. However, the Supero doesn't think so. Because it uses no superpowers, and besides he thinks the vigilantes are evil.
Evil?
Yes. The president thinks the vigilantes hate roads and bridges. He also thinks they do not like windmills. But most importantly, he thinks they try to take money from old people and children.
That sounds mean.
Yes. The president also said these vigilantes deliberately search out children with Down syndrome and autism for their actions. And any other kids with disabilities.
Surely he did not say that.
It is in the text of his speech.
Wow. The vigilantes surely are mean. And even though they have a plan, the United States population must hate them.
Well,
what?
the United States people recently elected the vigilantes to run the House of Representatives, so they don't hate them. But Super-O knows the American people are stupid and certainly don't have his newly found superpowers, so he still hates the vigilantes and does not care what the dumb people think.
Kind of like God.
Or a superhero.
So what is the plan?
Well, he neatly summed it up into 4 parts. Part 1 is agreeing to do what he agreed to do with the vigilantes last week.
Simply agreeing to do what has been decided doesn't sound like a new plan to me.
Maybe, but he was just getting warmed up. Part 2 is reducing the defense budget.
That seems like it will be difficult since we are currently engaged in 2 wars and are appropriately policing troubled situations across the globe.
This is where the superpower kicks in. We are going to keep doing the same things, but those things will cost less.
Wow. That is super. How does he do it?
Well, Super-O says the key here is to eliminate wasteful spending and improve efficiency and effectiveness.
That seems like something we should have been doing all along. And didn't he ask Defense Secretary Gates to do that before?
Yes, he did, and the Secretary made changes that will save up to $400 billion. But he only has regular vision and not Super-O vision. So despite his best efforts, he cannot possibly see all of the possible cuts that are truly possible yet.
Wow, even though he has been the Secretary of Defense for such a long time.
Yes, because even though he's experienced, he is merely mortal.
I see. So the President is going to share some of his superpower with Secretary Gates.
It seems so. So now, just like that, the defense spending problem is solved.
Is it like using one of the new lasers the Navy is testing to combat pirates?
Yes, very much like that. A superpower will be used to solve the defense spending issue. With defense spending in check, we can now move to point 3, which is healthcare spending. The President plans to use superpowers to lower the government's cost of healthcare spending, particularly Medicare and Medicaid. This is very important because the President said he agreed with the vigilantes that cutting Medicare and Medicaid expenditures over time is critical. But he has a totally different approach to achieving the goal.
So the vigilantes have articulated a plan that could only be conceived by mortals. What is the President's plan?
He says, and I quote, "We will lower the government's health care bill by reducing the cost of health care."
Wow. He just declared that cost will go down over time, and they will.
Yes, isn't it inspiring?
It is. It is like cold fusion. Or perhaps me saying it costs too much to fill up my car with gasoline and drive, so I will just jump up in the air and fly to work from now on.
I think you are getting it now. This is how we should think in order to solve our big problems.
So can Super-O do this alone?
Maybe, but he is going to be extra careful with this, and he is going to enhance his own superpowers with a special commission of doctors, nurses, medical experts, and citizens that he documents in his speech.
Kind of like Superman being a part of the Justice League in those cartoons.
Yes, very much like that.
So what is the 4th point?
Well, he is going to raise the taxes on that evil cult called the rich. He believes they take too much and give back too little.
I see. Are they really a cult?
I am not sure, but they seem to live by themselves and have a lot of fat cats running around.
Did the President say that in his speech?
Nobody has talked about fat cats before and doesn't support them.
Kind of like Mike Vick does not like pit bulldogs who do not fight well.
I do not think it is quite that bad. But he does not like fat cats. So right now the top 1% of the United States population only pays around 38% of the income taxes.
So they must make about 38% of the income.
No, they only make about 19% of the income.
So the top 1% of the population pays 38% of the income tax but only makes 19% of the income, and that is not fair.
Apparently not.
Well, I guess since the President used to be a community organizer, he is correctly worried about the income tax burden on the lower 40% of the population.
Well, not really, because they pay 0% of the income tax.
I see. So what is fair?
I am not sure. Super-O has not yet proclaimed what is fair. But what we are doing now is definitely not fair, and surely what he proclaims will be fair.
But I thought he just extended the current tax code a few months ago.
You were right, but that is before he gained his superpowers.
Oh, I see. Just out of curiosity, does the cult of the rich provide the most investment in the United States, which drives economic growth and employment growth?
I believe you are correct.
But taxing them more will not prevent new investment in the United States or drive more investments from these people to other countries.
Of course not. You need to quit thinking like a mortal and become a superhero.
Yes, you are right. It is hard for a researcher like me to escape reality and think like a superhero. I guess I will have to try harder to understand.
You do not need to think. Superhero will take care of everything, and if he cannot, he has a fail-safe plan.
I see.
So in the unlikely event his superpowers combined with the transfer of some superpowers to Secretary Gates and the strong efforts of the Medical Justice League do not work, then the president will require everyone to come together in 2014 and figure things out.
So it will take several years for the superpowers to kick in.
Yes, I think the superpowers are a bit like cooking in a crock pot. You do not see immediate results and have to be patient. In any event, the miracles associated with the superpowers will not occur before the next presidential election occurs in 2012.
When I was young and on Saturdays my father would ask me if I had done my homework. I used to tell him no, but I would do it on Sunday. Is this kind of like that?
Maybe. I guess it does seem like a bit of a delay.
I mean, the people who would figure it out in 2014 are alive today. Should they not start now?
Watch out. You are beginning to sound like a vigilante and are dimming my enthusiasm for hope and change.
I am sure you will regain your enthusiasm back in my suite.
I hope so.
Me too. I am glad you enjoyed the speech. It sounds like it was quite entertaining. It sounds as fun as many of my mother's stories when I was young and going to sleep at night. You're on off to the Smithsonian and I will finish my walk and head to Georgetown.
Should we meet at the Willard around 6?
That sounds lovely, and I have some more good news for you.
Super. What is that?
I am also a member of that cult called the Rich, and I recently purchased a residence inside the Four Seasons Hotel in Hong Kong.
Do you have any fat cats?
No, I have 3 dogs. But in the event that Supero's plan of raising the cost of capital to invest in the United States, coupled with invoking superpowers to diminish the cost of defense spending and health care, does not work, at least you and I will have a cool place for cocktails and snuggling even if the Chinese take over. We will already be in China. Cheers.